Hello, hello. Let me be about the 5 billionth person to talk about Dracula by Bram Stoker. Bram Stoker, born in 1847, 1912, Irish author, best known for Dracula, though in his own time better known as the personal assistant of actor Sir Henry Irving and a business manager of the West End's Lyceum Theatre. It's an epistolary horror novel told through letters, diary entries, and the phonograph. Cutting edge technology of the time. One of the characters uses the phonograph to record their thoughts, much like maybe somebody nowadays would be doing probably not a YouTube video. That's old technology by now. It would be not TikTok. I don't know whatever the new thing that the kids are doing nowadays, and also doing newspaper articles, all to tell about the story of Count Dracula, all through the eyes of various characters, starting out with Jonathan Harker, who visits the Count, who is interested in buying some real estate in London, in the heart of the empire. This is written in 1897 and is definitely set in the time when England was still the great unchallenged empire of the world. So dominant that it didn't even really feel it necessary to have allies at the time. It was so arrogant, so full of itself, so on top of the world as it was. Even though the rot was setting in, and maybe a lot of the anxieties of that time get expressed quite pointedly by this Irish author, which is, I think, in itself maybe a point of view that you can see come through here. There's a couple of different ways there are point of views in here. I mean, I think everyone knows Dracula. It's the origin. This is the text. I mean, there were earlier ones, but this is the text of what would become the modern vampire, the drinker of blood, the sexy, sparkling, not sexy or sparkling here, but definitely dark and foreboding of the thing. Very much, I found this is like a reread for me. I find that this time out that Van Helsing and Mia Harker, who had a different name before she marries Jonathan Harker, but I find that they are probably the standout characters in this book. The rest of the dudes are kind of wet dishes. Dracula himself is much more of the threatening presence. He's the thing that's kind of lurking around. Stoker does a very good thing of a horror novelist. You don't show the monster too much. It's like it's more the threat of the monster and the effect of the monster upon all the people that is really the thing. I mean, the primary victims that we're seeing this through are Jonathan Harker, where there's very kind of almost an S&M kind of daddy kind of domination that Dracula has of Harker at the beginning, which indeed so traumatizes him, drives him mad. And then his two main female victims, Lucy and Mina Harker. The two women are interesting because they are very much seem to be shown as representations of the idea of the new woman at the time, which is sort of this, I don't know if it's first wave feminism, but very much of an idea of challenging the ideas of what's feminine, what are feminine roles, what they get choices. There's some points in this thing where Lucy's like, well, I have these 3 suitors. Well, why wouldn't it be easier just for me to marry them all? Which seems kind of a little bit bold for this kind of late Victorian. Victoria dies in 1901, so this is a very late Victorian novel. It seems it's fairly thing. Mina at one point posits it's like, wouldn't it be better if you got to see your partner sleeping before you married them, which seems to kind of imply maybe premarital sex in there as well. And also just the active role that, not Lucy, for the most part, very passive, but Mina definitely takes a very active role in this novel. She is not simply the damsel, even though the men really try and kind of take up the status of knights going on a crusade against this evil foreigner, and wanting to protect Mina. But Mina actually does uh, push through that in some ways that are probably transgressive. I mean, there's just the whole thing of the unconscious that is dwelled on in this book. I really do think about this is a time period. I'm particularly interested in this time period. This is why I've been reading this book and others of it, of this period of 1890 to 1910 is my 1901 project, is what I've called the date of my grandfather's birth, um, of just kind of the burgeoning kind of unconsciousness, the idea of Freud. Freud is very much coming up in here, even if Stoker himself maybe hasn't read Freud, but the ideas of the unconsciousness, mesmerism, how maybe human beings aren't motivated by strictly rational thought, that maybe we're far more controlled by those inner, deeper passions. Maybe women have these inner, deeper passions and men can't control them, and women are demanding their own control. And how freaky is that to the men in this novel, and indeed into men in general, even today, hey, with women maybe wanting to kind of control their own reproductive rights. Geez, that's still something that is very much a horror story, it seems, for a hunk of the population, both male and female, to be honest. So it's yes. In this book, Jonathan Harker goes mad. We have the figure of Renfield. That one of the men, one of the suitors of Lucy, is a doctor in a lunatic asylum, and he is treating Renfield, who is also has this insanity, has this bizarre belief that the more he eats of living things, starting with flies, going to spiders, going all the way up until he's asking for kittens, and they're like, no. This sort of thing is all connected with the figure of the Count, this foreign figure who, yeah, at the beginning, he isn't actually going after the women. He's gone after Jonathan Harker, and seems to have seriously damaged his masculinity. There's definitely you can make some. There's definitely a lot of good queer readings you can give to vampires, which obviously has been explored far more. But even in this book, there was apparently a change in the two publications, the British publication and in the American publication, where there's implications of what exactly the relationship is between Jonathan Harker and Count Dracula. Like he wants to have his way with him before he gives him to his female vampires. So that was allowed in the American version, but not in the British version. A British society where just recently Stoker's friend Oscar Wilde had been prosecuted. Well, in a roundabout way, for being a gay man in a society that was still very much illegal to. Bram Stoker, who also had a lot of very hot and heavy letters with Walt Whitman. So there's definitely arguments to be made for what at least Bram Stoker was aware of, maybe not just strictly heterosexualness, however far you want to go into it. I have not gone that far into it, but I won't. But I can see that there's lots of readings there. So there's the psychological, there's the role of the new woman, women's control over their bodies, male anxiety over women getting new powers, that coming up with the rise of kind of what's going to be the suffragette movement and feminism and stuff like that going forward. And just also the idea of rationality. I really, one of the other books I do want to get to is Freud and his, I think it's the interpretation of dreams, is like 1901. And getting into that, however much Freud has been discredited as an actual scientist, still his ideas of, he's the big breaker of the idea of that maybe human beings aren't particularly that rational of creatures. Something else that may be amply demonstrated. But if you pick up any newspaper nowadays and look in it, exactly how irrational and fucked up we are. Not to mention when we're getting Freud and that here, we're about to enter into world wars and revolutions and just unimaginable bloodshed, done in the name of God knows fuck what. But yes, so yes, that is Drcl, Drcl by Bram Stoker. Just yeah, it's actually, it's really cool reading a lot of stuff within this era, because it's like, oh, Bram Stoker has this wonderfully melodramatic tone to him that he uses, which is fun. But it's like I can now parse it out with like, okay, I've read Edith Wharton, I've read various other authors in this time period, and it's like, oh, okay, I can parse out what's of this time period, but also what's uniquely a Bram Stoker kind of setting, mood, and just his kind of delicious kind of pulpy language in all of this mix is quite fun, and I can see why this is one of these books that has really kept. I find the ending of this book, not to give you spoilers, but I find the ending of this book really anticlimactic. Like, it's just like, okay, and then we kind of like, and everything was okay at the end, which is like, in some ways that makes things more unsettling. In some ways you can see why this book gave birth to so many more vampire stories, because because of how unsatisfying or how anticlimactic the ending is. I can see it just lighting the imaginations and fires of so many more people coming after it, in whether that is movies, whether that is other novels, plays, all that sort of thing. It's in some ways, it's funny, the weakness, the weak part of what I find of this book is also, I can see, is why it's one of the secrets of its success, its continuing success as the going on, is like people went, I could make that into a way better movie. And, that kind of idea, while at the same time really having some of its wonderful stuff. I love Van Helsing in this book. He is, I wonder why I find him so awesome. A part of it is he is the patriarch in this book. He is the comforting patriarch in this book. He believes the women. He believes their stories. So he's a good doctor who doesn't just dismiss somebody's symptoms. He's like, no, you're right. There is something going on here, and tries to help. So there's that. And just, but there's also just kind of this weird kind of just love thing that the men have of surrounding these women. It's just like they love them, they worship them, they put them up on pedestals as angels. There's that contrast of like this, it's this kind of almost weird conservative thing. Maybe also just a sort of a thing of like there's a brotherhood here that they love, and then they love the women abstractly. There's the thing of Drcl gets Mina to drink his blood, and she is tainted. There's there's the blood stuff in here that becomes AIDS metaphors later. It gets used as that, but is also kind of the venereal disease of rapid venereal disease of the time. Just kind of the infection of like, oh, you're getting all these weird foreign thoughts and it's turning you into this evil woman. It's like, maybe you're just turning into an independent woman. Of course, these independent women are also eating babies, so that's probably a bad thing in the scope of this book. So yeah, I can see why Drcl lives. Drcl lives. I got this one for Project Gutenberg, but Drcl will live, I can see, for a lot longer. As long as we're still completely fucked up, which we are, and irrational, and all that stuff. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? You can see that the longevity of this book is directly hooked up to all our kind of our own gnarly issues, whether that's xenophobia, whether that's misogyny, whether that's our own kind of irrationality. It's all in there. It's all in there. Isn't that wonderful? All right, I will leave it there. More videos later.